How could one man challenge the sea, monsters, and even the gods themselves? He was not the strongest of all heroes. He did not possess the invulnerability of Achilles. He did not have the strength of Heracles. His greatest weapon was his mind. It was he who conceived the wooden horse that brought mighty Troy to its downfall. It was because of him that the blinded Cyclops begged his father, Poseidon, for ruthless revenge. His name became a symbol of human ingenuity. Yet the road to that glory proved more terrifying than any heroic feat. 10 years of war. Another 10 years of endless wandering. Storms. Monsters. The loss of his dearest companions. And an unending struggle for the chance to see his home just one more time. But to understand who Odysseus truly was, we must return to a time long before the fall of Troy. To the days when no one yet called him a hero. When he was only a boy, born on a small island in the Ionian Sea. On the western edge of the Greek world lay Ithaca, a small rocky island surrounded by deep blue waters and relentless winds. There were no magnificent palaces like those of Mycenae. No vast fertile plains stretched across its land. Its mountains were covered with stone, wild olive trees, and dense forests. The sea was the island's greatest treasure. It fed its people. It brought trade. It opened the way to distant lands. And at the same time, it reminded them every single day that life could change with a single gust of wind. Here, people learned hard work from childhood. They learned to sail, to battle the storms, and above all, to rely on their own judgment. It was over this island that King Laertes ruled. He was not a conqueror driven to subdue all of Greece. His greatest wish was to preserve peace in his homeland and one day pass on a strong and just kingdom to the next generation. At his side stood his wife, Anticlea, a wise, gentle, and noble woman respected by everyone on Ithaca. Anticlea came from an extraordinary family. Her father was Autolycus, a man whose cunning had become legendary even in his own lifetime. People said that no one in all of Greece could equal him in cleverness. He had an unmatched gift for finding a way out of impossible situations, seeing what others overlooked, and staying several steps ahead of every rival. Years later, those very qualities would reveal themselves in his grandson. The future hero's greatest weapon would not be strength, but wisdom. One day, a boy was born in the royal house of Ithaca. To Laertes, he was the long-awaited heir to the throne. To Anticlea, he was her beloved son. And to old Autolycus, he was a grandson in whom he immediately recognized something extraordinary. It was Autolycus who gave the boy his name, Odysseus. No one could have imagined that decades later, his name would be known throughout the entire Greek world. There was one more person living in the royal palace who would play an important role in his life. Her name was Eurycleia. Laertes had purchased her when she was still a young girl, yet he never treated her as a slave. He respected her wisdom and her loyalty, and entrusted her with the most precious responsibility he had, the upbringing of his only son. Eurycleia loved the boy as though he were her own child. She learned to understand him without words. She noticed even the slightest change in his mood. And she would remain by his side even after nearly everyone else believed that the king of Ithaca had been lost forever. The years passed. Odysseus grew up surrounded by the sound of crashing waves, the cries of seabirds, and the scent of the salt sea breeze. He watched with fascination as sailors returned from distant voyages. For hours, he listened to their stories of unknown islands, foreign peoples, and dangerous seas. But it was not the stories themselves that interested him most. It was something else. Why did some men survive while others did not? Why did some defeat stronger enemies while others were defeated despite commanding far greater armies? From an early age, he tried to understand the reason behind every event. First, he observed. Then he thought. Only then did he act. Even adults were often surprised by the questions he asked. The boy always seemed to be looking just a little farther than everyone else. It was then that the character of the man who would one day outwit even the immortal gods began to take shape. Ahead of the young Odysseus lay years of learning, his first great trials and encounters that would change his life forever. Soon he would journey with his grandfather Autolycus into the mountains of Parnassus. There he would come face to face with a wild boar that would leave a deep scar upon his body. Decades would pass, and that very scar would one day allow the person who loved him most to recognize her king after 20 long years of separation. But for now, Odysseus was only a boy who had no idea what trials fate had prepared for him. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of the story. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.